Climbing while traveling can be an incredible experience. There's so many amazing places to climb throughout the world, and so much to learn about climbing by traveling to climb in new places. In this video, I'll go over some essential tips to make sure your next climbing travel experience is safe, hassle-free, and hopefully epic. Whether you're planning a trip centered around climbing, or just want to include some climbing in a wider travel experience, this video will be your guide to making your climbing travel experience amazing. Let's get started. Before you travel, you'll need to do some planning to make sure you've got the right gear with you when it's time to climb. The full gear list will depend on the type of climbing you're doing, but here's a few things to consider that might be more important than if you were climbing outside at your home crag. You want to think carefully about how to transport bulkier items such as ropes, large cams, or crash pads. Especially if you're flying to get to your destination, weight and size might be a material factor, and you may need to factor in the cost of additional bags. Consider what items you can bring yourself and what items you could rent at the destination. For example, during our trip to Castle Hill, New Zealand, we found an option to rent crash pads that was way cheaper and more convenient than trying to fly with them. There's also other considerations besides weight. For example, you'll probably want to keep chalk and climbing shoes in an airtight bag if you're packing them with other items like clothes, so that those items don't end up dirty and smelling like your feet after climbing. When you arrive, try and take your climbing shoes out of the airtight bag immediately so they can air out, as being in the bag for too long can make them smell really bad. You may also want to have an extra pair of climbing shoes around, even if it's an older pair, as you don't want to suddenly be unable to climb if something happens to your primary pair. There's other benefits to having an older pair around as well. For example, during our trip to Hawaii, we brought along older pairs of shoes we didn't mind getting wet for deep water soloing. You can check out that video right here. If you're sport climbing, also consider a stick clip, as you'll be visiting unfamiliar crags, and the extra protection against ground falls will allow you to try new climbing styles with confidence. There's options that can collapse down small enough to fit inside a checked bag. Finally, don't forget about the general stuff you'd normally bring to the crag, like sunscreen, sturdy footwear, and snacks. Speaking of things you shouldn't forget, make sure you're not missing more climbing tips and travel videos like this one by subscribing. It only takes a moment and ensures you don't miss any of the exciting content coming about the climbing trip I'm currently on. Even with all the right gear, your experience may not turn out great if you don't do some essential research beforehand. To start with, you'll need to find crags and gather info on climbs. If you're from the US, you probably default to Mountain Project, but in other countries, other websites might have a lot more info. I've listed some options in the description that have lots of information on climbs all over the world. Don't forget to download the relevant info for offline access. Also, don't forget to consult local climbing websites as well, as these can often have important details about local climbing ethics that aren't surfaced in the general ones. For example, in Castle Hill, the local climbing community washes climbing holds after they finish climbing to preserve the natural friction of the rock. If you're climbing in one area multiple times, or the area is especially hard to navigate, you can also buy or rent physical guidebooks. But I found that in most cases you can get by well enough with downloaded free online resources. You'll also want to make sure a particular crag fits into your travel plans in terms of time and conditions. Pay close attention to approach times and directions, and plan for extra time in case you get lost. Things will generally take longer than they would at a crag you're familiar with. You'll also want to make sure you're visiting at a time with good climbing conditions. Research typical weather for that time of year and plan accordingly. I've also linked a tool in the description that lets you see the sun angles for a particular location and date, which can really help you make sure you're visiting the crag at the right time of day. Besides the crags, you may need to research a new grading system to understand how hard climbs are. In some cases, such as converting from the YDS to French grades, the conversion might be straightforward. However, not all grading systems have a universally accepted conversion system, so you may need to do a little research. I've put a link in the description to a useful grade conversion tool that you can use as a starting point. Once you've got the grades in the system you're most familiar with, you'll also want to research whether particular locations or crags tend to run soft or sandbagged compared to what you're used to. In addition to collecting information on climbs and the approach, pay attention to permits, parking, and closures, as these can all negatively affect a climbing experience. For example, when we went climbing in the Grampians in Australia, there were some last-minute closures due to wildfires that would have prevented us from climbing if we hadn't changed our plans. Finally, build some flexibility into your plan to account for weather conditions that may not be known until days before. Some crags dry much quicker than others. You can also mix indoor tourism activities or a visit to a local climbing gym into your plans, and then decide the week before what day to do what once you have a more accurate idea of the weather. So, you've brought your gear, and you've done your research, and it's finally the day you've been waiting for, when you'll get to climb at that amazing destination crag you've seen so many pictures of. You follow your downloaded approach description, and arrive at the crag without getting lost. You might be tempted at this point to go immediately to that one exciting classic hard climb, but I would advise taking some time to get familiar with the climbing style and grading system first. The rock type and local ethics may be unfamiliar, and you'll want to get to know it before you go all out. You should also err on the safe side, especially at the beginning, as an injury can easily ruin a whole climbing trip, and access to medical care may be more difficult than it would be at home. For example, using a stick clip for sport climbing or an extra pad for bouldering can give you peace of mind and a bigger margin for error. Also, don't default to your project level grades. You'll likely have limited sessions, and you don't want to spend the whole trip on one climb you couldn't quite get. Consider changing things up and working on your on-site and flash game, or limiting yourself to climbs that you can send in a session or two. Especially if you don't do it often, you can learn a ton and get on a lot more climbs during the trip by doing this. Since you may be having tremendous amounts of fun, it can be hard to remember to pace yourself. However, you don't want to run out of energy and skin early on in the trip. Plan enough rest days, do recovery exercises, and don't waste your skin unnecessarily. Finally, have fun, and don't forget to get some great pictures. After the climbing is done, consider giving back to the local crag. Clean up after yourself, and consider updating the most relevant crag websites with approach beta, pictures of the climbs, and safety concerns you noticed. Speaking of giving back, your support in the form of likes and hitting that subscribe button means a lot to me and motivates me to make more videos like these. So if you haven't already, please consider subscribing now. Thanks for watching. If you want to see an example of what a well-planned climbing trip can look like, check out this video. And if you want to hear more climbing tips, check out this video I made of my biggest failure in climbing and what I learned from it.